What if I told you the most powerful moment of your life won't come with applause? It won't be posted online. It won't be celebrated. It'll happen in silence. When no one is watching, when the world is asleep, and you're still working, that moment when you finally stop trying to prove something to everyone else and you start proving it to yourself. See, there's a storm going on out there, a storm of noise, opinions, distractions, comparisons. Everybody's talking. Everybody wants to be seen. But very few are building anything real. Very few are willing to go inward, while the rest chase validation outward. What if the secret to success
wasn't in saying more,
but in saying less, in holding back, in staying quiet, while you quietly become unstoppable? You don't need more people clapping for you.
You need more hours of silence where you're sharpening the blade.
You don't need to tell the world what you're about to do. You need to become what you were born to do. Today, we're going to talk about a path that most people ignore, a path that leads to greatness that is paved with solitude, a path that demands your full attention, not on the world, but on yourself. This is not a message for the crowd chasers. This is for the builder, the believer, the one who's ready to go silent and go deep. Because when you stop talking, you finally start hearing the voice that matters most, your own. There comes a moment in every person's life when the noise outside no longer satisfies the questions within. The applause fades, the opinions blur, and you're left with the most important confrontation of your entire existence. You facing you. That's the real beginning of mastery. See, most people spend their lives chasing distractions. They move from one opinion to another, one trend to the next, hoping that somewhere out there they'll find clarity. But clarity isn't out there. It's in here. It's within. It's behind the doubts, beneath the insecurity, buried under years of pretending, and the only way to uncover it is focus, ruthless, consistent, undivided focus. When you start focusing on yourself, truly focusing, you begin to notice something strange. The world doesn't get quieter. No, it actually gets louder. The moment you choose yourself, the world tries to pull you back into its chaos. Friends question your distance. Family doesn't understand your solitude. Strangers online tell you how to live your life. But if you want to grow, if you want to rise above the noise, you've got to learn how to stand alone, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. That's the price of power. That's the cost of transformation. Focus is a discipline. It's not something you're born with. It's something you fight for. Every day, every hour, your attention is the most valuable currency in the world, and everyone wants to steal it. Algorithms want it. Gossip wants it. Jealousy wants it. But if you don't claim it, if you don't take command of it, then life will decide for you. And life doesn't care about your potential. Life rewards the ones who take control. The moment you stop focusing on what they said and start focusing on what you're becoming, everything shifts. You stop reacting. You start creating. You stop explaining. You start executing. You stop seeking approval. You start moving in purpose. That's when real power begins to emerge. Quietly, without fireworks, without hashtags, without a crowd. It begins in the invisible. People think transformation is some big dramatic event. They think it happens in front of the camera with a perfect speech and an audience clapping. But transformation is silent. It happens in the mornings you don't feel like getting up, but you do anyway. It happens in the hours you say no to distractions when nobody would have known. It happens in the way you talk to yourself when nobody's listening. That's inner focus. That's the fire that burns without needing to be seen. And you know what's beautiful about that kind of focus? It can't be taken from you. The world can doubt you, delay you, even try to destroy you. But if your inner focus is locked in, you stay grounded, because when your mind is anchored in purpose, the storms may shake the surface, but they don't move the foundation. But let me warn you, focusing on yourself isn't easy, because when you start looking within, you won't just see your dreams. You'll also see your fears, your excuses, your patterns, the habits that have held you back for years. You'll come face to face with the version of you that sabotaged your past, and you'll have to choose whether you let that version live or you bury it and build something new. That's why most people avoid inner work. It's uncomfortable. It's raw. But it's the only place where real growth happens. When you focus on yourself, you realize that most of the obstacles weren't out there. They were inside. It wasn't the world that stopped you. It was the belief that you couldn't. It wasn't the lack of opportunity. It was the lack of preparation. It wasn't the noise of others. It was the absence of your own voice. You've got to reclaim your mind, reclaim your time, reclaim your energy, because what you feed grows. What you focus on expands. And if all your energy is scattered, trying to impress, trying to explain, trying to chase things that don't align with your purpose, then you'll never have enough left to build what actually matters. Inner focus means choosing depth over speed. It means understanding that real success doesn't come from doing more. It comes from doing what matters most with consistency, with intention, with fire. It means waking up each day with a decision to align your actions with your values. It means saying no to things that look good but don't grow you. It means building a life so rooted in purpose that distractions feel like insult. Focus is freedom. It frees you from comparison. It frees you from overthinking. It frees you from regret. When you're locked in on becoming the best version of yourself, you don't have time to envy others. You don't have time to gossip. You don't have time to doubt. You're too busy building. And the beauty of this process, it compounds. Each day you focus inward, you plant a seed. And those seeds grow slowly, silently, but inevitably. And one day the world will look at your life and call it a breakthrough. But you'll know the truth. It wasn't a breakthrough. It was the result of quiet, consistent, disciplined inner focus. So tune out the noise, turn off the voices, and turn your attention inward. The answers you're looking for, they've been waiting in you all along. Silence, a word so simple, yet in today's world it feels almost rebellious. We live in the loudest age in human history, an age where everyone has a platform, an age where opinions echo like thunder across digital skies, where people are more interested in being heard than being understood, where value is mistaken for volume. And in the midst of all this noise, we've forgotten the ancient power of silence. Silence is not weakness. It's not absence. It's not emptiness. It's not passivity. Silence is presence. It's awareness. It's strength in its most refined form. And yet, it is feared by many because silence reveals truth. And truth, when it's no longer covered by distraction or performance, can be uncomfortable. The world screams for your attention. Every notification, every opinion, every headline, every viral moment is designed to pull your mind in 1,000 directions. The more distracted you are, the easier you are to control. The noisier your environment, the harder it becomes to hear your own intuition. But the person who can sit in silence without needing validation, without needing applause, without needing to respond to every voice, they are dangerous because they are not easily influenced. They are not moved by the surface. They are rooted. In silence, you can hear what's really going on, not just around you, but within you. You begin to notice your thoughts, your fears, your insecurities. You start to observe the mental loops that have been playing for years without challenge. In the noise, you react. In the silence, you reflect. And reflection is where real change begins. Silence gives you space to think deeply. It gives you clarity. It sharpens your decisions. It strengthens your mind. In the noise, decisions are often made emotionally, impulsively, under pressure. But in silence, you access your higher self. You tap into wisdom. You begin to distinguish between what's urgent and what's important, what's noise and what's signal, what's fleeting and what's eternal. People today are addicted to expressing themselves. We've been conditioned to speak before we think, to post before we process, to respond before we understand. But there is great power in withholding your words, in listening more than you speak, in observing more than you explain. Because while the world rushes to speak, the wise remain silent, watching, learning, gathering power in the pause. Silence is how you regain control. Control of your thoughts, your energy, your attention. Most people don't realize how much of their mental bandwidth is wasted in arguments that don't matter, in comparisons that leave them feeling small, in chasing conversations that only drain their spirit. But the one who learns to remain silent amidst the chaos begins to conserve a different kind of energy, a quiet, unshakable force that no one can take from them. Not everything requires your reaction. Not every insult deserves your response. Not every moment needs your commentary. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is nothing at all, because silence, when it is intentional, is a language of its own. It communicates strength, discipline, and emotional control. The person who does not need to speak to prove their worth has already won half the battle. The person who can let others talk, let others boast, let others shout, and still remain unmoved, that person is untouchable, because their peace is not dependent on others. Their focus is not for sale. In the age of noise, silence is your advantage. When others are distracted, you are dialed in. When others are influenced by trends, you are guided by principles. When others are drained by arguments, you are fueled by solitude. And in this contrast, you begin to stand out, not by seeking attention, but by mastering presence. Think about the most impactful people in history. They didn't waste their breath. They didn't chase attention. They chose their words like weapons. And when they spoke, the world listened, not because they were loud, but because they had spent enough time in silence to know what was worth saying. Their words had weight. Their actions had direction. Their presence had gravity. That kind of presence isn't built in front of the crowd. It's built when you're alone. In the quiet hours, in the spaces where no one is clapping, where no one is watching, where you're not performing but preparing, that's where your edge is created. In silence, you do the inner work that makes outer strength possible. Silence is also where healing happens. When the noise stops, your heart can speak. You can finally hear the pain that's been buried. You can feel the grief that you've been suppressing. You can begin to understand why you've been running, chasing, proving. And from that place of awareness, growth is born. Not the surface level kind of growth, but the kind that shifts your identity, changes how you carry yourself, alters what you will and will not tolerate. In silence, you get reacquainted with yourself. You remember your power, you reclaim your vision, you refocus your energy, and once you do that, once you've sat long enough with your truth in the stillness, the noise of the world begins to lose its grip. You no longer need the crowd's applause to feel worthy. You no longer need to argue to feel strong. You no longer need to be seen to know you exist, because you've found something deeper, something the noise can't offer, something silence reveals. That quiet place where peace and power coexist, where clarity leads and wisdom whispers. That sacred ground within you where the world doesn't decide who you are, you do. And in that silence, you become something rare, unshaken, unbothered, unstoppable. Your mind is a fertile field. Whatever you plant there, whether it's seeds of doubt or seeds of power, will eventually grow. That's the unshakable law of the subconscious. It does not discriminate between what is real and what is imagined. It accepts whatever you repeatedly tell it as truth. And in time, it begins to act on those truths as if they were law. That's the power of autosuggestion. Every thought you dwell on, every sentence you repeat in your head, every word you speak out loud about yourself, that's a suggestion. Whether you're aware of it or not, you are constantly programming your mind. The only question is, are you programming it on purpose, or are you letting the world do it for you? Most people are unaware of the stories playing in their heads. Stories like, I'm not good enough. Success isn't for people like me. I always mess things up. Nobody supports me. I'll never get out of this situation. These aren't harmless thoughts. They are repeated instructions. And the subconscious mind, like a loyal servant, follows them without resistance. You tell it you are weak, and it responds by shutting down your strength. You tell it you'll never succeed, and it sabotages every opportunity before you can grab hold of it. But the opposite is also true. If you begin to feed your mind new instructions, clear, bold, empowering affirmations, you will rewire your subconscious to work in your favor. This is not magic. This is not wishful thinking. This is deliberate mental conditioning. And it works not just because you say it once, but because you say it until it becomes embedded into the very fabric of who you are. Repetition is the key. The subconscious does not respond to emotion alone. It responds to consistency, just like a muscle needs repeated effort to grow. Your beliefs need reinforcement to solidify. You can't say, I am powerful once and expect your life to change. But say it every day. Feel it as you say it. Visualize what that power looks like, and your mind will begin to reshape itself around that belief. Autosuggestion becomes even more powerful when combined with emotion. If you repeat affirmations robotically, they stay at the surface. But when you inject belief, when you say, I am capable, and you feel that statement in your bones, when you say, I deserve success, and let that truth stir something deep inside you, you begin to plant seeds in the subconscious that take root. Emotion charges the message. It tells your mind this matters. The more emotion you bring, the faster the transformation happens. And the best time to do this kind of mental programming is when your mind is most impressionable, early in the morning, right before sleep, and in moments of quiet reflection. In these moments, the conscious mind relaxes. The gatekeeper steps aside, and the subconscious is open, like soft clay ready to be molded. Speak into it what you want to become, not what you fear, not what you're lacking, but what you choose to create. The words you speak in those quiet moments become blueprints for your future. The greatest mistake people make is waiting until they feel confident to speak confidently. But confidence is not a requirement for suggestion. It is a result of suggestion. You don't have to believe it fully at first. You just have to say it anyway, repeatedly, persistently, like a warrior planting flags in unfamiliar territory until that territory becomes your own. Tell yourself, I am focused, I am disciplined, I move with purpose, my mind is sharp, I attract the right opportunities, I am not easily shaken. At first, it may feel like a lie, but if you stick with it, that lie begins to transform into belief, and belief begins to transform your behavior, and your behavior begins to change your outcomes. And before long, you look around and realize you have become the person you've been describing all along. This technique is not reserved for the elite. It is not some rare secret. It is available to every human being, but few use it. Why? Because it requires discipline. It requires patience. It requires the humility to repeat the basics every day, even when you don't see instant results. But if you can persist, if you can repeat your affirmations with intensity and consistency, everything changes. This is how you begin to take control of your life. Not by trying to control the external world, but by first mastering the internal dialogue. The words you speak to yourself matter more than the words anyone else speaks to you, because your subconscious is always listening. It is always recording, and what you say consistently, it will turn into reality. Start small. Choose 5 affirmations that speak to the person you want to become. Say them out loud every morning. Say them with emotion. Say them when you're tired. Say them when you're discouraged. Say them when you're on top of the world. And especially say them when no one else believes in you. Because every time you speak those words, you cast a vote for your future self. Your mind is a tool, a powerful, obedient, creative tool. It will build whatever you tell it to build. It will believe whatever you train it to believe. Use auto-suggestion, not casually, not occasionally, but as a daily ritual. Make it as non-negotiable as breathing. Because what you repeat with belief, you eventually become. In a world where social media dominates the landscape, where every accomplishment is posted and every move is broadcasted to the world, there's a profound truth that you truly understand. Real growth happens in silence. It's not about broadcasting your progress to the world. It's about building something solid that speaks for itself over time. There's immense power in working quietly and building in the shadows and in letting your results make the noise. The world is obsessed with validation, but true success is found in the work you do when no one is watching. The urge to broadcast our efforts is a natural human instinct. We live in a culture where sharing our lives, our victories, and our setbacks is not only normalized but expected. We celebrate public milestones and social media accolades as markers of success, but too often this outward validation distracts us from the real work that's required to achieve greatness. Constantly for acknowledgement, applause, or likes can drain your energy and divert your focus. You begin to chase recognition instead of results, seeking external validation rather than internal growth. But the most successful individuals, the ones who leave a lasting impact, do not seek applause along the way. They understand that true value comes from sustained effort, from consistent, quiet work, from building something worthwhile that doesn't require constant announcement. They know that their accomplishments will speak for themselves when the time is right. They focus on the process, not the approval of others. They understand that the real reward is not in the likes and comments, but in the transformation that takes place when you give everything to the pursuit of your goals regardless of who is watching. The real danger in broadcasting your journey is the loss of focus. When you're constantly showing your progress to the world, seeking approval and attention, your attention is divided. Instead of putting your energy into refining your craft, improving your skills, and working on the deep, difficult things that lead to success, you're wasting precious mental and emotional energy trying to impress others. Every post, every update, every announcement is a distraction. You begin to measure your worth by how others perceive you, not by how you perceive your own growth. When you're too busy broadcasting, you risk losing the essence of what truly matters, your vision. Your vision is the inner compass that guides you, the quiet force that propels you to push beyond limits and reach new heights. But when you constantly look to the outside world for confirmation, you weaken that internal voice. You start listening to the crowd instead of listening to your own heart. You stop asking yourself, what am I trying to build? And instead ask, what will others think of what I'm building? This shift in focus can derail your progress, because external validation will never fulfill your deeper needs. Only the work, the discipline, the sweat, and the persistence you put in can do that. Building in silence doesn't mean hiding your work or being secretive for the sake of secrecy. It means cultivating the discipline to stay focused on your mission, to avoid getting lost in the noise, and to trust that your hard work will speak for itself when the time is right. It's about creating something that lasts, not something that simply impresses for a moment. It's about going beyond the surface and digging deep into your craft, perfecting your skills, and honing your abilities until you've created something truly valuable. Think of the great innovators, the ones who shaped history, the ones who created legacies that still influence the world today. They weren't busy broadcasting their ideas at every step of the journey. They were quietly working, experimenting, failing, learning, and refining their craft. The world only saw the final product, the masterpiece that had been years in the making. They didn't need the world's approval to begin the work, nor did they need it to continue. They were driven by an inner desire to create something meaningful, something that would leave an impact. Building requires patience. It requires trust in the process and belief in the vision, even when it seems like no one is watching or caring. Building requires the willingness to fail, to stumble, and to learn from each setback. Broadcasting, on the other hand, encourages you to focus on the end result, on the product, on the praise. It's easy to get caught up in seeking immediate feedback, but this can lead to frustration when that feedback doesn't come quickly or when it's not what you expect. The process of building in silence is about dedication and perseverance. It's about committing to the work for the sake of the work itself, not for the approval that may or may not follow. It's about setting long-term goals and sticking to them even when the results aren't immediately visible. The key is to remember that everything worthwhile takes time. Nothing great was ever built in a day, and no meaningful success was ever achieved by trying to impress others. It's about doing the hard work day in and day out, trusting that the rewards will come in due time. There's also a freedom that comes with building in silence. Without the pressure of performing for others, you are free to take risks, to fail, to try new things without fear of judgment. You are free to experiment, to pivot when necessary, and to refine your ideas without the pressure of constantly updating the world on your progress. It's liberating to focus entirely on the work without the need for external validation or approval. You create for the joy of creation, not for the applause of the crowd. When you do this, you build with integrity. You build something that is authentic, something that comes from your heart and soul. The world may not see it in the moment, but when the time is right, when the foundation is strong enough, they will recognize it. Your work will shine not because you've been shouting about it, but because it speaks for itself. The value you create will stand the test of time, and people will begin to take notice, not because you've been broadcasting it, but because they can feel its worth. So stop broadcasting and start building. Shift your focus from the external to the internal. Invest your energy in creating something meaningful, something that is truly yours. Work quietly, diligently, and with purpose. Trust in the process, in the long road of growth and progress, and know that when the time comes, your work will not need your promotion. It will speak for itself, and that is where the true power lies. Success is not always loud. In fact, true success is often a quiet process, a steady progression that goes unnoticed by most. It is not about shouting from the rooftops or making a grand spectacle of every step. True success is built in the stillness, in the quiet hours of hard work, in the moments when no one is watching. It is about persistence, discipline, and the consistency of effort that eventually leads to extraordinary results. Success is about doing the work that others are unwilling to do and mastering the art of remaining focused even when no one is applauding. When you look at those who have achieved great things, you often don't see the behind-the-scenes work. You don't see the years of struggle, the early mornings, the sleepless nights, or the sacrifices made in private. You only see the end result, the outcome of a journey that was often long, difficult, and largely unnoticed. The people who achieve greatness do not make noise about the process. They do not seek attention for every small victory along the way. They focus on the work itself and let their results speak for them. The process of success is often not glamorous. It's about showing up every day, even when things are tough, even when progress seems slow, even when it feels like no one cares. It's about being committed to the work, trusting the process, and knowing that small efforts compounded over time will lead to something monumental. The quiet steps forward, the hours spent refining skills, the moments of failure and recovery, they all matter. They are all part of the quiet process that lays the foundation for loud results. Too often, people focus on the external markers of success. They want the quick wins, the immediate recognition, the applause. But that kind of success is fleeting. It is based on what others can see and praise in the moment, not on the lasting impact that comes from deep, sustained effort. When you chase external validation, you lose sight of the true essence of success, the internal work, the commitment to self-improvement, and the relentless pursuit of excellence, no matter who is watching. Success is not a performance. It is a journey. And like any journey, it requires patience, resilience, and a long-term vision. The most successful people understand that they do not need to broadcast every step of the way. They know that their results will eventually speak for themselves. They are willing to do the hard, unnoticed work because they know that the results will eventually be loud enough to silence the critics and doubters. One of the most powerful elements of success is its ability to be self-sustaining. When you focus on the quiet process of building, your results will start to speak for themselves. Over time, as your efforts compound and your work becomes more refined, others will begin to take notice. They will see the fruits of your labor, but they will not always see the journey. And when the results are loud enough, when your work finally gets the recognition it deserves, the silence of the process will have already spoken volumes about your character, your discipline, and your dedication. The quiet process of success is also a test of character. It is easy to get distracted by the noise of the world, by the opinions of others, or by the pressure to perform. But real success requires you to shut out those distractions and focus on the work at hand. It requires the ability to ignore the applause and the criticism alike and to keep moving forward with purpose and determination. It requires the humility to keep working when no one is watching and the patience to wait for the results to come, even when they seem far off. In the age of instant gratification and constant connectivity, we are often tempted to share every step of our journey. We want to let the world know what we're doing, how we're doing it, and how great we are at it. But this desire for validation can detract from the work itself. When you broadcast every move, you divert energy away from the task and into the approval of others. You risk becoming more focused on the reactions you get than on the work you're trying to do. Instead, if you dedicate yourself to the quiet process of growth and improvement, the results will eventually speak louder than any words or social media post could. Your work will be your testimony. Your results will be your message. People will begin to notice, not because you've told them, but because they can see the impact you've made. And when that happens, the quiet process of your work will be far more powerful than anything you could have said along the way. The reality is the world doesn't owe you recognition. It doesn't owe you applause. It doesn't owe you anything. Success isn't guaranteed by how many people you impress, how many followers you have, or how many people are aware of your effort. Success is earned by the consistent work you put in, the sacrifices you make, and the determination you display day after day. It is a quiet process that requires you to remain focused on your goals regardless of what others think or say. The louder the world gets, the quieter you must become. Success is a process of filtering out the noise and tuning into the voice within you that tells you to keep going even when it feels like no one is paying attention. It is about building something that stands the test of time, something that remains long after the applause fades. It is about doing the work not for recognition, but for the satisfaction of knowing that you are moving closer to your goals step by step, day by day. In the end, the loud results are a reflection of the quiet process. The more you focus on building and growing in silence, the louder your success will be when it finally arrives, and when it does, it will be undeniable. It will speak for itself, not because of the noise surrounding it, but because of the strength, the dedication, and the consistency that went into making it. The results will be loud enough to make all the quiet work worth it. Success, at its core, is built in silence. It's the quiet hours, the unseen effort, the unnoticed persistence that pave the way for extraordinary outcome. The loudness of success comes not from constant announcements or external validation, but from the power of results that speak for themselves. The true measure of success is not in the applause, but in the resilience, the discipline, and the steady commitment to your craft. So focus on the work, trust in the process, and let your results be the loudest thing about you. Keep building, stay quiet, and when the time comes, your success will be louder than you ever imagined.